If you slept a full 8 hours last night and still woke up feeling like you barely closed your eyes, I want you to know something right away. That is not just aging. That is your body trying to tell you something, and most people over 60 have been taught to ignore it completely. We've all been handed this quiet assumption that waking up tired is simply part of getting older, something to accept and work around. But persistent morning fatigue, the kind that lingers even after a full night in bed, is often a signal, not a sentence. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the real, often overlooked reasons you might be waking up exhausted, several of which have absolutely nothing to do with how many years you've lived and everything to do with things you can actually address. If this is the kind of practical, honest health guidance you want more of, go ahead and subscribe to Longevity Insight right now, because we release videos like this every week, built specifically to help people your age feel sharper, stronger, and more like themselves again. Let's start by clearing something up because it matters. Sleep does change with age, that part is true. Starting somewhere in your 50s and 60s, the architecture of your sleep naturally shifts. You spend less time in deep, slow-wave sleep, the stage most responsible for feeling physically restored, and you wake up more easily during the night, even if you don't remember doing so. This is a real documented pattern, and it explains why sleep can feel lighter and less satisfying than it did decades ago. But here's the important distinction. A little lighter sleep is not the same as waking up completely drained, day after day, week after week. When exhaustion becomes the norm, rather than the occasional rough morning, aging alone rarely explains it. Something else is usually layered on top, and identifying what that something is can be genuinely life-changing. The first hidden factor is poor sleep quality that has nothing to do with how many hours you're spending in bed. You can lie down for 8 or 9 hours and still get relatively little deep restorative sleep if that sleep is fragmented. Things like an uncomfortable mattress, a room that's too warm, too much light exposure, or simply going to bed at wildly different times each night can quietly break up your sleep into shorter, shallower segments without you ever fully waking up enough to notice. Your brain essentially resets its sleep cycle every time it's interrupted, meaning you might technically get plenty of total sleep time while getting very little of the deep restorative kind your body actually needs to feel recovered. The second hidden factor, and one of the most significant, is sleep apnea, a condition where breathing repeatedly stops and starts throughout the night, often without the person ever realizing it's happening. This becomes considerably more common after 60, and it's frequently mistaken for simply getting older because the daytime symptoms, exhaustion, brain fog, irritability, look almost identical to ordinary fatigue. What's actually happening is that each pause in breathing partially wakes the brain, preventing it from settling into the deep sleep stages that provide real restoration, sometimes happening dozens of times a night without any memory of it the next morning. Loud snoring, gasping during sleep, morning headaches, and a dry mouth upon waking are all common signs, often noticed by a partner before the person experiencing it ever suspects anything. Sleep apnea is highly treatable once identified through options ranging from simple lifestyle adjustments to devices that keep the airway open overnight, and addressing it often produces one of the most dramatic energy improvements a person can experience at this stage of life. The third hidden factor is something as simple as dehydration, and it's remarkably easy to overlook. As we age, the body's natural thirst signal becomes less reliable, meaning you can be meaningfully dehydrated without feeling particularly thirsty at all. Even mild dehydration affects blood volume and circulation, which in turn affects how efficiently oxygen and nutrients reach your brain and muscles, leaving you feeling sluggish and foggy, particularly first thing in the morning after roughly 8 hours without any fluid intake at all. A simple habit of drinking a glass of water shortly after waking, rather than reaching straight for coffee, can make a noticeably positive difference for a lot of people. The fourth hidden factor is nutrient deficiencies, and a few in particular deserve attention after 60. Vitamin B12 absorption naturally becomes less efficient with age, partly due to changes in stomach acid production, and low B12 is strongly linked to fatigue, since it's essential for red blood cell production and nervous system function. Iron deficiency, which can result from diet, certain medications, or underlying digestive issues, reduces the blood's ability to carry oxygen efficiently throughout the body, leaving you feeling drained even after adequate rest. Vitamin D, which many people simply don't get enough of, particularly if time outdoors has decreased, plays a meaningful role in energy regulation and muscle function as well. These deficiencies are usually identified through a simple blood test, and correcting them, often through diet adjustments or supplementation guided by a doctor, can produce a surprisingly noticeable improvement in daily energy levels. The fifth hidden factor is medication side effects, and this one is worth taking seriously because it's so commonly overlooked. Many medications frequently prescribed after 60, including certain blood pressure medications, some antidepressants, allergy medications, and drugs used for other chronic conditions list fatigue or drowsiness as a known side effect. Individually, a single medication's effect might be mild, but when someone is taking several medications simultaneously, sometimes prescribed by different doctors who aren't necessarily coordinating with one another, those mild effects can add up into significant daytime tiredness. This is exactly why it's worth periodically reviewing your full medication list with your doctor or pharmacist, specifically asking whether fatigue could be a combined side effect rather than simply assuming persistent tiredness is unrelated to what you're taking. The sixth hidden factor is chronic stress. And I want to be clear that this includes the quieter, more low-grade kind of stress that doesn't necessarily feel dramatic day to day. Ongoing stress keeps your body producing elevated levels of cortisol, a hormone that, when chronically elevated, disrupts normal sleep architecture and can leave you feeling wired at night yet utterly exhausted in the morning. This kind of stress doesn't have to come from an obvious crisis. It can build quietly from ongoing worry about finances, family, health concerns, or even the accumulated weight of unresolved daily frustrations. The body doesn't always distinguish between different sources of stress. It simply responds to the ongoing signal, and over months and years that response takes a genuine toll on both sleep quality and daytime energy. The seventh hidden factor involves certain underlying health conditions that can present with fatigue as one of the earliest and most prominent symptoms. An underactive thyroid, for example, slows down metabolism throughout the entire body, and persistent tiredness is one of its most classic signs, alongside things like feeling cold more easily or noticing changes in weight. Anemia, whether related to iron deficiency or other causes, reduces oxygen delivery throughout the body in a very direct physical way. Heart and lung conditions can reduce the efficient delivery and use of oxygen as well, sometimes showing up first as fatigue before any other symptom becomes obvious. And blood sugar irregularities, including undiagnosed or poorly managed diabetes, frequently produce significant fatigue, particularly when blood sugar levels swing sharply throughout the day. None of this is meant to alarm you. Most causes of fatigue turn out to be far simpler and more manageable than a serious diagnosis. But when fatigue is persistent, unexplained, and doesn't respond to basic sleep improvements, ruling out these underlying conditions through simple blood work is a genuinely worthwhile step, because catching something like thyroid dysfunction or anemia early makes treatment far simpler and the recovery far quicker. Now let's talk about what you can actually do, because this is where things get genuinely encouraging. Sleep quality, more than almost any other factor we've discussed, responds remarkably well to consistent practical habits. The first and possibly most powerful habit is maintaining a consistent sleep and wake time, even on weekends. Your body relies heavily on a stable internal clock, and going to bed and waking up at wildly different times, even by a couple of hours, can meaningfully disrupt the quality of deep sleep you get, regardless of total hours logged. The second habit is managing light exposure intentionally. Getting natural sunlight within the first hour or so of waking helps anchor your internal clock for the day ahead, while dimming lights and avoiding bright screens in the hour or two. Before bed helps your body naturally produce the melatonin needed to fall into deeper sleep more easily. The third habit involves your bedroom environment itself. A cooler room, generally somewhere in the mid-60s in terms of temperature, tends to support deeper sleep for most people, since your body's core temperature naturally drops as part of the process of falling into deep sleep, and a room that's too warm can work against that. Keeping the room as dark as possible, using blackout curtains if needed, and minimizing noise, whether through earplugs or a simple white noise machine, all support fewer nighttime awakenings, even ones you might not consciously remember the next morning. The fourth habit involves what you consume in the hours before bed. Caffeine has a longer half-life than most people realize, meaning that afternoon coffee can still be affecting your sleep quality well into the evening, even if it doesn't feel like it's keeping you awake. Alcohol, despite sometimes helping people fall asleep faster, actually fragments sleep later in the night and reduces the amount of deep restorative sleep you experience overall. Large meals close to bedtime can also interfere with settling into deep sleep, so aiming to finish eating a couple of hours before bed tends to support a smoother transition into rest. The fifth habit is building in some form of gentle physical activity during the day. Regular movement, even something as simple as a daily walk, has been consistently shown to improve both sleep quality and daytime energy levels, and it doesn't need to be intense to be effective. What matters most is consistency, moving your body regularly rather than occasionally pushing hard and then remaining sedentary for long stretches in between. The sixth habit is creating an actual wind-down routine before bed, something that signals to your brain and body that the day is transitioning toward rest. This might be reading a physical book, some gentle stretching, a warm shower, or simply sitting quietly with a cup of caffeine-free tea. The specific activity matters less than the consistency of doing it, because your body learns to associate that routine with the approach of sleep, making it easier to settle down each night. So when should ongoing fatigue prompt an actual conversation with your doctor rather than simply trying another sleep habit adjustment? A few situations are worth flagging clearly. If you or a partner have noticed loud snoring, gasping, or pauses in breathing during sleep, that's worth mentioning specifically, since it could point towards sleep apnea. If fatigue persists for several weeks despite consistent, genuine effort toward better sleep habits, that's a sign something else may be contributing. If fatigue is accompanied by other changes like unexplained weight change, feeling unusually cold, changes in mood, or muscle weakness, those combined signals deserve a proper evaluation. And if fatigue is severe enough that it's genuinely limiting your ability to enjoy daily life, that's always worth addressing directly with a healthcare provider, regardless of how long it's been going on. Simple blood work can check thyroid function, blood count, vitamin levels, and blood sugar, often providing clear answers fairly quickly. And a sleep study, which is far more comfortable and accessible today than many people expect, can identify sleep apnea definitively. I think what I want you to take away from this video more than anything else is a simple shift in perspective. Waking up exhausted is common after 60, but common doesn't mean unchangeable, and it definitely doesn't mean it has to be your new normal. So often people quietly accept fatigue as the price of getting older, when in reality a treatable sleep issue, a nutrient deficiency, a medication interaction, or an underlying condition is sitting there, fully addressable, simply waiting to be identified. You deserve to wake up feeling like yourself, with enough energy to actually enjoy the day ahead of you, not just get through it. If this video resonated with you, I'd love to hear which of these hidden factors stood out the most. So leave a comment below and let me know. Or share what's helped you personally if you've already worked through something similar. Conversations like this genuinely help other people watching recognize patterns in themselves that they might have been dismissing for years. And if you know someone who's been struggling with this exact kind of unexplained tiredness, a parent, a spouse, a friend who always seems tired no matter how much they sleep, please share this video with them. It might be exactly the nudge they need to finally look a little closer. Before you go, remember this. Fatigue is information, not just an inconvenience. Your body doesn't create persistent exhaustion for no reason, and paying attention to that signal, rather than simply accepting it, is one of the most powerful things you can do for your energy, your health, and your independence in the years ahead. If you found this helpful, make sure you're subscribed to Longevity Insight and turn on notifications so you never miss the practical health guidance we share here every week. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Sleep well tonight, and I'll see you in the next video.